Hello, people, and welcome to another Conspiracy 420, episode 74. And do we have something that will traumatize you? Something that will not let you sleep? Something that even Jack and the Beanstalk had a problem with? And we're talking about the history of real live giants. And Mike
Giant.
has a bunch of stuff to tell you from the Bible, from the even the Book of Giants. There's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to fill you in, but giants were real, right, Mike?
I think without a doubt, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, they have their bones. Okay, so we know that human beings or human-like beings, humanoid kind of beings, existed that were much larger than what we are now, 8, 9, 10 feet tall, with skulls that could fit over your skull. Okay, so there's a lot to it, and so just want to say that this is going to be a couple of parts, and this part here about giants, I'm going to introduce it. I'm going to talk about a little of the stuff in the Bible, a little bit of the Book of Enoch. We're going to talk about the fallen angels and the Nephilim, and that is the crux of what giants are about. Um, Also, I want to get into a little bit of ancient civilization kind of stuff with this because I think it all ties in. Okay.
Because they talked about giants. Lincoln talked about giants.
Well,
Because he
yes,
brought that point up.
we will get into that at another point, because a lot of skeletons of giants have been found in the United States
Yeah.
throughout the 17, 1800s, early 1900s. They were found mostly in Indiana, Ohio, upstate New York, a few other places, I believe Tennessee, Kentucky, and even some stuff out west. And Indians, American Indians, the Native Americans, they have all the tribes, and some of them really had no dealings with each other, okay, in their time. But all the tribes do have tales and legends about giants, fighting giants, killing them off, because some of them, some of the stories even say that the giants used to eat them.
You
Okay.
ever heard of supposedly they found a giant in freaking where they were in the Iraq?
No, it was
Supposedly
Afghanistan.
but supposedly they encountered some
There is
giant and
there is
they
a
had
story.
shot him down.
There is a story, and we have brought this up before, and I'd like to try to research on it more. But there is a story that in our occupation of Afghanistan over the last 20 years, I think it was about maybe 10, 15 years ago, that some soldiers came across a cave and a giant came out. Somebody that was about 12 feet tall, okay, red hair, long red scraggly hair, and was attacking them and throwing weapons at them and spears and things like that. I don't know. Okay, but apparently, I think even one person died, and then they were all evacuated out by helicopter. Okay,
Wow.
the way the story goes. So there's some kind of something happened. All right. So I'd love to try to find out more about that, but I want to get into some of the real old history here. I want to talk about some of the Bible verses that
Yeah, so
mention
let's
giants.
start with Genesis 6
Right.
4.
Yeah. Now Genesis 6:4. You're right at the beginning of the Old Testament. It says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore them children. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown, okay, or renown, okay. Now, what does that mean? The Nephilim were on the earth. Who were the Nephilim? Well, the Nephilim.
Titans.
Well, yeah. I mean, that last sentence there, I think, refers to that. Okay, but to define the Nephilim, you're talking about the children of the fallen angels. Now, the fallen angels. This is a legend that exists in many ancient civilizations, not just Christianity and Judaism. Okay, uh, ancient Sumerians, ancient Egyptians had legends of people coming down from the sky. Okay. Now, let's just go with the biblical thing that we might be more familiar with.
Angels.
Angels or the sons of God came down from heaven. Now, these angels were meant to be what's called watchers. And they came down to watch us, but that's it. Okay, not to interfere. But in the book of Enoch, where they have the book of giants and the stories about the Nephilim in a lot more detail, and the book of Enoch is very important. Everybody should check this book out if you're interested in religion, because it's kind of like a full explanation about all this and the great flood and Noah and stuff like that, that's left out of the Bible. The book of Enoch is not in the Bible. It only exists in the Ethiopian canon of the Bible. Okay. They have a much bigger Bible than what the rest of the world has. But in the book of Enoch, it explains how these watchers came down, fallen angels came down, and some of them started to mess with human women. They fell in love with them. Okay. They were beautiful. They had never seen anything like that before. They fell in love with them and they began to mate with them and have children. Now, these children are the Nephilim. Okay. These are the spawn of angels or fallen angels and mankind. Okay. Now, many of them were of deformed nature. Okay. They were hideous. Some were giants. Some had 6 fingers, 6 toes. Okay. And just to jump ahead, many of the giants' bones that have been discovered in the world have 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Wow.
Okay. They were also described as having 2 sets of jaws in their mouth. Okay. 2 sets of teeth. Two sets of teeth on the bottom, 2 sets of teeth on the top. We have skeletons like that.
Yeah.
They were discovered and pictures were taken. This shit exists. Okay. Or existed. Okay. So then it says here, they came into the daughters of men and they bore them children. These are the people I'm talking about. But then it says, those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Okay. I think that when you talk about Greek mythology and, Hercules, okay, Poseidon, Zeus.
You want to hear something strange? Could
What?
Samson be related to these people?
Yes.
Because Samson had to be.
He had incredible
strength.
He had incredible strength until he cut his hair. Okay. How that works into it, I'm not sure. Okay. But, they say, in a lot of research, biblical research, that even Abraham may have had, some kind of relation or ancestry with these giants. Now, he was not a giant. So some of these people are kind of, they could pass for normal. Okay.
He killed Goliath.
Well, David killed Goliath.
No, David killed Goliath.
David killed Goliath.
That was a giant.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Now, another chapter here is Numbers 13, verse 33. That's also in the Old Testament. In fact, all of these are Old Testament verses. There also we saw the Nephilim. The sons of Anak are part of the Nephilim. And we became like grasshoppers in our own sight. And so we were in their sight. In other words, these are like Israelites that are looking at this race of people. They're observing them from somewhere on a hill, maybe, or something. Okay. And they're saying, we look like grasshoppers to them.
They look like small people.
We look like small people, and they're gigantic. Yeah. Okay. And there was a race of people called the Anak or Anakim. Okay. And the Anakim were part of the Nephilim. Okay. They all were, some of some descriptions of the Nephilim is not just giants; they're cannibals. They put people into slavery. They hold slavery of other races.
Wow.
They they're rapists. Okay, so all these they have. It seems that the Nephilim have a hatred of mankind, maybe because they're not like mankind. Could be a jealousy thing. I don't know. Okay, but definitely the size thing is what we're talking about here. So it says now in Deuteronomy 2 verse 11, like the Anakim, they are also regarded as Rephaim, but the Moabite call them Emim. So what that means is they got different names. Different tribes called these people different things. Okay, but they gave them these names because they were unique. It wasn't just like those guys over there. It's like they gave them a name because of their uniqueness as being giants. Deuteronomy, second Deuteronomy, verse 20. It is also regarded as the land of the Rephaim, for Rephaim formerly lived in it, but the Ammonites call them Zamzumin. All right, so that's another name for these people. Okay, there's lots of tribes of these Nephilim.
Yeah.
Now, also in Deuteronomy 3 verse 11, it says, "For only Og, king of Bashan, was left as a remnant of the Rephaim. Behold, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. It is in Rabbah of the sons of Ammon. Its length was 9 cubits, and its width 4 cubits by ordinary cubit." Now, Og was a king of Bashan. Bashan was a territory. He was the last remnant of the Rephaim. The Rephaim were giants. He's the last one.
He's the last one
of the Rephaim, and he's a king. Everybody's got to deal with this guy. He's a warrior king in a way. Okay,
yes. He'll kill you.
Yeah, exactly. Now it said his bedstead, meaning his bed frame, was an iron bed frame. Why would you make a bed frame out of iron? Well, you're probably pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very heavy.
Meaning you're big. And they even say it is in Rabbah of the sons of Ammon. They even know where he sleeps. That's where that bed is. Okay. Its length was 9 cubits and its width 4 cubits by ordinary cubit. Now, what's a cubit? You see this all over the Bible. Okay. And in old literature and stuff from the time, a cubit was a measurement. They didn't have like the measurements we have today. They didn't have what they used to use is parts of their body. Okay. There was also 2 types of cubits. There was an ordinary or regular cubit and a royal cubit. Now this says ordinary cubit. So the length was 9 cubits and its width was 4 cubits. A regular cubit was approximately 18 inches. Okay. And it measured from your fingertip to your elbow, like that. So if they said they needed something 9 cubits, the carpenter would, or whoever building it, would measure it out from here to here. Okay, 9 times. That was going to be the length. Okay, a royal cubit or a long cubit was 21 inches. It was just about 3 inches longer. So that was the standard. Okay, so how big is this bed that Og is sleeping in? Okay, 9 cubits, 9 times 9 ordinary cubits, 9 times 18, 162 inches, right? 9 times 18?
Like
no,
12 feet.
Yeah, 162 inches. You're talking like, it's like 7 feet. More than that. Because a foot is 12 inches. So you're talking it's like almost 10 feet long.
Yeah.
Okay. And, why would you need a bed that big if you weren't that big? All right. It was built to size. The width was 4 cubits. Okay. That would be 72 inches.
Yeah.
That's 6 feet wide. All right. 72 inches is I guess, is that king size or a little bit bigger?
That'd probably be like a king size bed.
Yeah. Okay. So he had a king size bed just for himself. That wide. Okay. This was probably a twin size for those days. Okay. Really, if you think about it. Okay. You probably, so we're talking about big people. Now, some people say, oh, well, giants aren't really, maybe they're just really tall people. Yeah, but we have like the races of these people, and some of them are very tall. They're not 20 feet tall, but, in those days, if you were 7 feet tall and most people were 5, you were a giant. Okay. Now, in First Samuel, chapter 17, verse 4, it says, then a champion came out from the armies of the Philistines, named Goliath, from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. 6 cubits and a span. A span is another figure of length,
height,
which actually comes out to about 9 inches. So you're adding 6 cubits, 6 times 18. Okay, 6 times 18 plus another 9 inches. Goliath.
You think the span is the length for his arms?
Well, a span was ordinarily just 9 inches. How they figured that out, I'm not sure. Span sounds like half a cubit, right? Because a cubit's 18, so it sounds like a half a cubit. So he's basically 6.5 cubits high.
So you got to be like 10 feet tall.
It's actually no, a little less. It's like 8.
8. So he's still a big man. Shit, 8 feet tall.
How many 8 feet people do you see? How many 8 feet tall people? No, not walking around. Nope.
No.
Okay. And it's also described like with Goliath. He had a gigantic sword and shield. I mean, you couldn't lift it. Only he could lift it. Okay. Now, in 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 20, it says, there was war at Gath again, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number altogether. And he also had been born to the giant. So now you have giants giving birth to other giants.
Yeah.
All right. This is happening. This happened. All right. There was a race of people that were gigantic like that. Okay. And they were to be feared. And it seems like most of the history is violent. You know what I mean? Seems like that. Now, then in Joshua, it says, then Joshua came at that time and cut off the Anakim from the hill country, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua utterly destroyed them with their cities. At some point, and I think at more than one point in biblical history, it was decided to kill these people, to go after the giants.
We have to, because you know what's happening when they're having sex with each other? You're going to get bigger people.
Well, there's more of them, okay? And they're all warlike, okay? So it's a problem, and they probably decided we got to wipe them out or they're going to kill us eventually, okay? So then it says in Numbers chapter 13, verse 32, so they gave out to the sons of Israel a bad report of the land which they spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone and spying it out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw it are men of great size. Okay, so there again, another verse about
giants.
what you're witnessing. Okay, they're witnessing people in their land, okay, devouring each other. They're cannibals, devouring its inhabitants.
It's
Okay,
crazy.
yeah, and they're also of great size. So it makes a lot of sense. All right, and I think when and I want to get into later on in another episode, we'll talk more about the American side of it. Okay, where the Indians had legends with this, and bones, and there would be these mounds. Okay, and the mounds, when you dug into them, they were almost like little mini pyramids in a way, tombs.
But Mike, think about what you said.
Yeah.
These guys are having the same problem the Native American had with their giants.
Well, yeah. Okay, but it's later on. It's later on with the
But it's
American.
almost the same thing when you think about it.
Yeah, but here's the kicker. The biblical stuff is happening over there. And then centuries later, in AD times, or maybe late BC times, AD times, okay, now it's happening in North America. So how'd they get over there? All right, were they always there? We don't know. Okay, I'm going to discuss that later on in depth with another episode. Okay, what I think. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where I want to make a big jump here, I don't know if you're going to agree with me, is I think that we have not, as a society anywhere in Western civilization, really dealt with this in any real way. Okay, the stuff that it's considered. First of all, most people don't believe it, and then second of all, the ones that do, you hit this brick wall, because by the time the Smithsonian Institute in the United States was formed, it was common to find bones like this, these mounds that were generally in American Indian terrain, okay, areas that they controlled. Or if it wasn't, it was still common sometimes to find these mounds with, a bone or two or three left inside, a leg bone that was like twice as big as a regular leg bone. So people knew that there was a race of people. They usually tied them in with the Indians, thinking it was a race of Indians, but I don't believe it was at all. Okay, I don't believe there's really any connection between them. Indians either came later. Well, they really had to have come later. I think the giants were probably here first.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and then the Indians came later on. The Indians came from Central Asia, though some of them also have European ancestry as well, which is not often discussed. They try to, the history of American Indians, they try to make it all that they came from Central Asia, traveled over the Aleutian Islands when that used to be a land bridge, and came down into the United States. That's not exactly true when you start testing Indian genes, okay, and DNA. But that's a whole other topic. But I think that because we haven't really discussed this as a society and accepted it as a fact that there were a race of giants, and they, maybe they're even still out there. Who knows? Okay, probably not, but who knows? That changes the whole structure of human history. What does it mean? Well, if you go by what the Bible says, they're related to fallen angels. Well, who would have fallen angels?
There was a bunch that got kicked out of heaven.
Well, according to the book of Enoch, it's not that they were all kicked out of heaven. They did come down here for a purpose, but they went bad while they were down here. While they were supposed to be watching us, they were called watchers. Some of them decided to fuck around a little bit. All right. So, but they also, here's the other kicker. In Book of Enoch, it says how the ones that decided to interfere with us, they taught us technology, they taught us weaponry, okay? Some taught geometry, science, mathematics.
Wow.
Now, you could say, were the fallen angels aliens?
But they probably were the one that helped make those pyramids. Think about that.
That's what I'm getting to. Okay, I think my belief is that when you tie all that into ancient civilizations, you look at ancient Egypt. Okay, you go back to like I'm thinking it's like 30,000 BC, something like that, 20,000 BC or so. There's no language, there's no hieroglyphics, there's no nothing in Egypt. There's people there, but they're very primitive. They have some there is some evidence of them that's been found. Okay? But all of a sudden, around 25,000, 20,000 BC, you have a civilization with a complicated language of hieroglyphics that we still don't understand.
Yeah.
All the way. Okay? Then, in those days, something had happened. Egypt used to be a fertile ground. It used to, the Nile is not where the Nile is now. It was about 800 miles, I believe, to the west. Okay, if I'm right. All right. And, the environment changed. The Sahara Desert is a new desert compared to other deserts. It used to be a jungle.
Yeah.
You could dig under the sand in the Sahara and find remnants of that.
Wow.
Okay, it isn't that old, all right, compared to others. So,
but
something happened that changed them.
You ever heard the theory that dinosaurs didn't really get extinct? They just turned into birds?
Well, yes, because the closest relation to dinosaurs on Earth now are birds.
Yeah, look at a chicken. That could easily be a T-Rex.
Yeah, well, look at the feet. Okay,
Yeah,
they have scaly feet like reptiles. All right, I was watching a podcast recently, and there is theories out there that they believe, and I'd like to research this more because it's interesting, that dinosaurs and human beings actually were around at the same time. Okay, that our dating system, the carbon dating and stuff like that, that makes it seem like we're so much older, is off. Okay, so I find that very interesting because that could explain a lot. Okay,
you know what? They really never found like an actual dinosaur that's
preserved.
100%, because you like very preserved well.
Yeah, but they found woolly mammoths.
Woolly mammoths, yeah,
that are preserved.
And they were big back then, but what could woolly mammoths could easily turn into elephants? They were just very big.
Well, they were an offshoot, but they were if you go by the carbon dating and the timeline of history, the mastodons and the woolly mammoths that were the big elephants, they existed way a million years after dinosaurs.
And woolly mammoths were a little different, right? They were like hairy or something, right?
They were hairy and they were warm-blooded. Dinosaurs were more cold-blooded, though some scientists have tried to flip that now, saying they may not have been. They may have been warm-blooded too. So they don't really know.
They don't really know. Because think about it. Let's say if you freaking took the DNA of a dinosaur, I mean, and then you made like a thing like Jurassic Park. The thing is just a giant chicken. They just shrank. They just got smaller so they can survive.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny because you look at old, ancient times, dinosaur times. Everything was bigger, right? A dinosaur is a lizard. It was just big. Okay.
Yeah. They're
as
cavemen for
time,
giants.
well, as time went on, things got smaller. So maybe human beings or an offshoot of us, the Nephilim, an offshoot, okay, almost like a stepbrother or
Yeah.
half brother, okay, were bigger. Who knows? Okay, but here's the thing. If you look at ancient civilizations that just came out of nowhere,
Yeah.
right? Egypt, a little bit before that, the Sumerians in Iraq, okay, they came out of nowhere with a language, okay, a little bit before the Egyptians. There's also stories in South America, okay, of in Peru and Mexico, places like that, Ecuador, that they talk about their creation theory, their creation legends, and it was a very tall Caucasian man with long red hair. Now, what this is way before the Spanish came. We're not talking that, okay? And
Yeah.
they didn't look like that anyway, okay? But they have these legends where these people, gave them culture, gave them a language, gave them technology. How did they build those pyramids?
Yeah.
Okay,
You know what?
how the
You know
Egyptians
what it
built it?
is? The Watchers started coming and talking to people. You're gonna
Yeah,
do this.
and
You're gonna do that.
interfering. Now, another thing with ancient civilizations, we could do a whole show on this, is Atlantis. Okay, fascinating subject. Where was Atlantis? Well, and what happened to it? Well, even Plato, the philosopher, wrote about witnessing Atlantis. He viewed it. He
Oh
saw
yeah,
it.
the beauty of it. Yeah.
Okay, he saw it. He wrote about it. So I don't think a guy that's known for philosophy and writing about facts and history is going to lie about something like that. There has to be something to it. Maybe these are the people. These are the fallen angels that gave the technology to certain people throughout the world, planted
And
that
in
seed.
time.
Right. Now tie it in with giants, okay? Because these same fallen angels interfering, giving this technology and culture and language to these primitive men, hook up with their women, okay, and create now a new race
A new
of the
race.
okay, and this race is bad. This race wants to kill mankind. All right. I mean, the Smithsonian, getting back to that,
But Mike, let me blow your mind.
go ahead.
That's just so you had two different spectrums. You had the one when you started telling the story about Afghanistan, it was a giant with red hair.
Yeah.
Now we go to North America, and the people was a person with red hair. What is this thing with the red hair?
Red hair with the giants. I don't know. Okay. Did they maybe over time? I mean, when you think of red hair in Europe, you think of the Irish or you think of the Vikings.
Yeah.
Okay. And there was some intermingling going on. I mean, the Vikings were warlike. Okay. And they kind of came out of nowhere as a race and started invading Western Europe, England, Ireland. They did make their way to the United States. They were known to intermingle with Indians. Some even came back, took them back to Scandinavia. The pretty ones they took back, okay, the good looking ones, all right, and could the Vikings been descended from giants?
They're definitely not descended from giants, but they were very angry giants.
Yeah, I mean they were big in stature anyway. They didn't have the same descriptions. They weren't six-fingered. They didn't have a double set of jaws, but they had that warlike culture. Well, where does that come from in that part of the world? All right. Now, another thing. According to the Book of Enoch, most of the giants were killed in the Great Flood with everybody else. Okay, but not all. Some survived, obviously. Okay, but where did they go? So let me read this to you. But still there is more. It calls up the indefinite past. When Columbus first sought this continent, when Christ suffered the cross, when Moses led Israel through the Red Sea, nay, even when Adam first came from the hand of his maker, then as now, Niagara was roaring here. The eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now.
Wow.
This is a quote from a speech written by Abraham Lincoln. When he witnessed Niagara Falls, he never gave this speech, okay? It was left in his files, but it's part of a bigger speech that he was writing when he was campaigning before he was president. He was in the upstate New York area, and he witnessed the Niagara Falls. And he mentions giants, the eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now. He's saying this extinct species of giants that we know all about, we know that the mounds are here, their bones are here, okay? They looked at Niagara thousands of years ago, just like we do now, and blown away by, the wonder of Niagara Falls. So where did they go? Well, I think that they went west, okay, and ended up in the New World, okay? So never mind Columbus, never mind the Vikings, never mind the Indians. Probably the first people to ever settle in America could have been giants.
Mike, let me give you this theory. What if the giants that came here were the ones that were avoiding the Great Flood?
That's what I'm saying, Rob. All right, that's exactly what I'm saying. The ones that survived the flood.
Yeah.
All right.
They came to America.
Okay. Somehow got here. Okay. Maybe they were here already in small amounts. We don't know. Okay. But there's so much evidence of giants in North America that they must have had, and the Indians talk about it. Some of these giants were almost like animals. Okay. They might be 8 feet tall, weird shaped skull. Some had elongated skulls, which is another trait. And there's pictures of, you ever look at some of the hieroglyphics in Egypt and you look at their skulls and they look elongated?
Oh yeah.
What is that?
Giants, maybe.
Maybe, or relations to giants. Okay. And in Peru, they have found those big giant skulls with elongated heads. I mean, they're like that big.
There's that guy, that real life Indiana Jones. I can't think of his name, but he found some shit, and he called the government, and they took it, and they pretty much
squashed it.
Don't even say anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that somebody would take this up as a topic and run with it on a government level, but it's not going to happen. All right, because it's too crazy. It goes against everything that we've been taught. But we all know by the shows we've done and other podcasts and other documentaries, the government doesn't tell us the truth. All right, they tell us what they want us to know.
But you ever heard that whole thing about like where the Mayans were? That they get so much alien activity or UFO have crashed or something, or they still try to make contact with some people that are here?
Well, yeah. I mean, remember when we had Gustavo on and he was talking about in Argentina how it was just commonplace to see, spaceships Like you could be hanging out, all of a sudden something flies low over you.
Yeah, and it's like, what the hell is that? It's pretty amazing, some of the stuff that's out there.
Yeah, but and then even like recently, the Navy admitted that UFOs were being seen only 7 years ago. Okay,
Wow.
so there's something to that too. I think it all ties in together.
You know what I also think? This is my theory. What if Atlantis is where all the giants went? Just to stay away from us.
Well, listen. Okay, let me run with that for a second. Let's just say you're right. Okay. Well, what happened to Atlantis? Well, there's a great theory about this, and I got this from Graham Hancock's book, The Fingerprints of the Gods. Okay. He's amazing. All right. Everybody should read him if you're interested in this kind of stuff. He ties all this in together, and he's like an Indiana Jones type. He climbed the pyramid at Giza. He climbed it to the top. All right. So I mean, he's like that. He's like an Indiana Jones. But he talked about an interesting theory about Antarctica. Okay. There's evidence in Antarctica, okay, of a time when it was not frozen. They've dug under the ground. They found trees and all kinds of stuff that are like from a sub-Saharan level. Okay, in other words, jungle trees that would be in a warm climate. Right. How did it get down there? Well, there's a theory that the continent, if you look at a globe, Antarctica's on the bottom. Okay, but there's a theory that it wasn't always on the bottom. That it was kind of like tucked in between South America and Africa.
Wow.
Okay. And northern Africa. Okay. And South America. Kind of like where the two continents look like that, kind of, and then in that space. Okay. And may have come down further. In other words, the Atlantic Ocean in that area may have been nothing, like hardly there at all. It was a continent.
Yeah.
Now, there's beliefs that there was natural disasters, and it could have been related to the Great Flood. It could have been something separate that shifted that continent down. Okay.
It made everything move.
And the way it's described in the theory, and it does have a name, the theory, but it escapes me at the moment. But you ever take an orange, okay, and you don't peel it, but you kind of go like this with it, and you can get the inside to break apart, and the skin will move over it. You ever see that? It's like a weird, the skin is moving, but the orange is still inside it. Okay, yeah. They think this is what happened with the continent, that it broke apart underneath and slid down. Okay, and it would explain a lot. It would explain, first of all, how jungle trees got in Antarctica. Okay, but it would also explain there might have been a race of people there. Maybe that's Atlantis. Maybe that's the race of people that gave these ancient civilizations their technology. Right. Maybe they're descended from the Watchers, or they are the Watchers. And maybe the Nephilim are their spawn of mating with human women. Okay, it's pretty heavy, right?
It's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Just think about it. Who was talking about everybody that saw giants being stinks? When Lincoln talked about that, they're being here in America.
I mean, why would he put it in a speech if it wasn't something that he knew about?
It had to be something that he studied, he knew about, because that whole thing is like very like, whoa, he's getting into some deep shit, man.
Well, how tall was Lincoln?
Lincoln was pretty tall. What was it, like 6'8", 6'9"?
I don't think he was that big. I think he was like 6'5", 6'6". Okay.
He was still tall. He was probably one of the tallest guys.
Well, he's the tallest president I think we had. Okay. Trump was very tall too, but I don't think he was as tall as Lincoln. But
No, I think Lincoln's like one of the tallest ones.
yeah, yeah. Now, maybe he was interested in that because he was so tall. Maybe he was like he thought he had some kind of kinship or relation, even. Who knows?
Maybe
I
he's a
mean,
descendant.
maybe he's a descendant. You
Because
don't know.
remember, this guy was a guy that was self-taught.
Yeah,
He was self-taught. Lincoln, think about how freaking
smart.
most of the greatest guys from
Oh yeah, the smartest people are usually self-taught.
self-taught.
Yes,
They just teach us
I mean,
like Plato,
Lincoln,
all those guys. He was like pretty much. He went to school
Lincoln,
later on, but
Lincoln. Yeah, he
he
couldn't
seeked
afford
the
law
knowledge
school.
himself.
He couldn't afford law school. He taught himself law with books.
Yeah,
Pretty amazing.
it is
Okay,
pretty amazing.
well, that's an interesting little tidbit. There could be something there, but Lincoln at least knew about these ancient mounds, these burial grounds of giants. It was common, and he was saying right here, they these extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America. They were here before us, and they looked at Niagara before we did. So,
What if Lincoln's people found some shit and they just burned it and buried it? That's why he knew he didn't want to be like spook the people. That's why he put in his speech.
well, I don't know. I mean, I think in those days of Lincoln and before that, I think people were aware of it, and it was kind of just accepted. Maybe they didn't understand where it all came from and whatever, but they knew that there was a race of giants. Remember, in those days, Indians were they were around. They were in your neighborhood. So
Yeah.
you had friends, or you might have talked with Indians, and they would tell you things. Stories were passed between the white man and the Indian. It wasn't all just killing each other like they want you to believe.
No.
Okay, they had to get along for centuries before everything went the way it went. But how many times you watch movies and there's always like the old guy in town that knows the Indian stories because he hung out with the Indians. Okay, it's always like that. And these stories are passed down from the American Indians all the way down in their history, and it's the same in all these different tribes. Okay, they had giants. They fought them and set their caves on fire and flushed them out and killed them and stuff like that because they were killing their children. Okay, eating them. And I think some of these giants, I think that these tribes of giants coexisted with Indians as well, and occasionally they would get along or they had to work things out, so they lived alongside each other. So who knows? There may have been some mating going on there too.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. But no one wants to talk about it. No, the Smithsonian Institute is very well respected, and I guess there's good reason for that. I'm not going to argue that, but they're also a government agency. People don't realize that they're actually a government agency. They're not a private museum.
Oh,
okay,
wow.
So they take orders from the government, and the Smithsonian Institute gobbled up and purchased or took a lot of many giant bones. Okay, and other things like weapons they would find in these burial grounds. They would find arrowheads, spears, and keep in mind, spears that were way too big for anybody to be throwing. Only a giant could throw it. Okay, and they took these things and brought them to the Smithsonian. And when people try to ask about it now, they say they don't have it. So, there's definitely somebody's keeping it a secret. Absolutely. They don't want us to know. And another thing about the weapons is they have found weapons in these mounds in America that match the same weaponry from biblical times.
Wow.
Okay. They have also found evidence of sophisticated metal works with these weapons, spears, knife type things. Okay, that doesn't match the timeline. In other words, they were doing things with metal, these creatures, that nobody was doing at the time. It was like thousands of years ahead.
You seen the verse of Samuel 21:15-22?
No, tell me.
The one that said now when the one that said the giant, the last destroyed by David and his warriors.
Yeah.
They're claiming that David and his warriors destroyed the final giants.
Well, in Israel. Yeah. And that goes back to what I was saying before. They had to make a decision. And they said it's us or them, you know? And they decided, and you know, David was the first like major king of Israel, right? So, you know, he consolidated the country into power. Okay, he had the power. He ruled. David's an interesting guy. He, you know, he wasn't perfect. He had problems with women like a lot of guys do. You know,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Okay, but he was a major warrior king. He defeated Goliath, but that didn't end his problems with giants. Okay, there was a race of people that was still out there, and in order to reign over Israel, he probably had to wipe them out.
But you know what? That even makes more sense why they probably came to North America or try to escape because they were getting killed.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many. You know, what makes sense too is why would the fallen angels only go there? Why wouldn't they go to other parts of the world? There had to be people other places.
They could have gone other ways. Explain with the guy with the red hair.
Right. So yeah. So you know, there might have been primitive Cro-Magnon kind of people, okay, in Northern Europe that they mated with, but gave them some technology, okay, and they became the red-haired giants. I don't know, okay, but possible. I mean, it sounds crazy. But the evidence is there. The skeletons are there. They have pictures of these things. They're sitting in museums or they're hidden in other places. The Smithsonian has a lot of them.
Dude, let me ask you a question. Probably Bigfoot is just a red-headed, hairy giant.
Hey, you know, it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
Still running around. Where the hell are my people?
Yeah. You know, but, you know, you got to figure they got to be descending. They got to be mating with somebody to keep it going. It's not a 5,000-year-old creature. You know,
no,
doesn't live forever.
No, yeah. So they got to be. You never know.
Well, we don't know.
We'll get down to it.
Yeah, you know, and I think this all ties in with ancient civilizations, lost technology, and the Great Flood, and you know, going into American Indians and North America, the Aztecs, the Mayans. I think it all ties in with that.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm going to be talking more about this probably in a couple of weeks. So
we need to go talk about the book of the book Enoch.
Yeah.
Because that book got stories of giants and fucking, it's much more insane.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into a lot more detail, which is probably why it's not in the Bible. Okay, they just didn't want people to know about all that because by that point they were probably all wiped out. When the Bible was put together in the 4th century, you know, they were probably all wiped out.
All right, what else you got for me, Mike? Is that it for? And
that's it for this episode. And you know, I'm going to be putting more together on this. The Conspiracy 420 show is going to be in full steam. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Stay tuned for the information. We'll put it on Facebook and some other places. And check it out because we're going full force with this going into next year. Every other week, a new show. Rock
And
show, conspiracy show.
remember, when you watch this show, make sure you light up, and then you can listen to us. Smoke a big
Well,
fatty.
that's why it's called 420.
Smoke it if you got them. So hopefully we can get this up on the air. And the episode of Giants. We talked Giants before. We're gonna be bringing a lot of interesting topic, a lot of UFO crashes that have been happening, and stuff that's just being thrown underwater or hiding or hidden because people don't want people to know what the hell's going on, especially
No.
after this fucking weird year that we lived. It's insane.
Well, yeah, I mean that's that's a whole other thing. We talked about that like crazy, and I'm kind of sick of talking about it. But every day it's something else, right?
Yeah, you want to hear something funny? So they had the police commissioner Shea,
Yeah,
like
Dermot O'Shea or something like
Dermot
that.
O'Shea and De Blasio. You wanna hear what they were talking about, Mike? You wanna fucking laugh?
What?
Maybe we should bring back the broken mirror, the broken glass law. It's like,
Broken windows policies you're talking
broken
about.
window. What the fuck?
Yeah. Well,
It's ridiculous. You can't
they
make
got
it,
they try to reinvent the wheel and they realize it can't be done.
And I think they're doing it now because Eric Adams is going to come in. All right, we have a black mayor. Let him arrest them.
Yeah, let him take the fall. Could be.
Dinkins all over
all,
again.
All over again. Yeah, well, I'm gonna just do more research on Giants. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, Giants are most interested in the real world because
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
So what are we talking about next? Are we doing the part 2 of Giants?
Yeah, we'll do part 2 of Giants soon in about a week. And we've got some other things lined up. I don't want to spoil it yet. We'll let you guys know real soon. Some surprise guests and surprise topics related to conspiracies, of course. The Rock Show is going to be on a hiatus for a little bit, and we're coming back in January with 2 shows a month, excuse me. The other 2 shows every month will be conspiracy, so we're definitely going to be paying more attention to the conspiracy show, and we need to do that. Should be good.
Mike, think about since we were talking about Ethiopia, the whole thing with the Giants, the whole thing with the cover, the extra Bible that they had. Think about it, that's coming from there. Maybe the cover was there.
Yeah, I mean Ethiopia is it's a cradle of civilization as much as Israel and Egypt and places like that. The West doesn't really teach it, but that's the case, though. Doesn't take much to find out that information.
Think about how many freaking watchers were in Ethiopia.
Right. I mean, Ethiopia is mentioned in the first chapter in Genesis. Okay, so there had to be some there. Hey, you just brought up something I didn't realize. Ethiopian people are normally very tall.
They are tall.
Maybe. They are tall people. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Didn't that one guy, that basketball player, the skinny guy that came out of Ethiopia?
I think, but if you look at
last song because he was so damn skinny, but he was tall. He was a center.
Yeah, I forget his name. But yeah, as far as even in comparison to other people in Africa, the Ethiopians are usually very tall and slender. And I wonder what that means. How'd that happen?
We'll find out, man. We'll do more research.
Well,
we'll
listen, there's obelisks in Ethiopia. They're at the base, the beginning of the Nile. So the Nile actually runs from Ethiopia into Egypt. Has to be. There's always been a connection. So they're the civilizations. So there has to be something there. Good point. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, that's.
I'm gonna research that. I'm gonna research that angle. Yeah, I like that.
You never know what we might get out of that. Because if you look at this there's still a few areas out there too that they got people that are pretty much savages that they haven't changed their society. They still live like they did like fucking 10,000
years.
years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Ethiopia is sort of a place like that too. Okay,
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's places in Africa that have never changed, and
Never change.
They go there, and it's like a time warp. You know how they do things, but you can learn from that. You
Just
know,
imagine the stories they could tell. Like if we could understand what the hell they were talking about.
yeah. Well, I mean, anybody can learn another language, but you know, even in Ethiopia, again as an example, there's so much history there that when you read about it, it kind of ties in and fills the gaps on a lot of stuff. And I just wish it was discussed more in the West. People would have a better understanding, you know, of what it's all about. So,
all right, Mike.
Right.
So thank you for another exciting episode of Conspiracy 420. This is episode 74 of the Conspiracy, and the name of the title is Giants. It will be coming back next week with part 2.
Part 1, yeah. Part 2 will be coming up. If anybody watching wants to get in touch with me, go to Instagram, RockerMike212, RockerMike212. You could find me on CloutHub and MeWe under Rocker Mike. You could find me on Facebook under Rocko Mike. How about you, Rob?
I'd like to give a shout out to Tales from the Dark. They actually did a very good show on Giants that was pretty good, but they did more of the North American Giant.
Yeah. Bob Hicks, he's great. Tales from the Dark. They always have very fascinating stuff on there.
It's great stuff. So check out that. You can find it any podcast platform, just like you can find us on everywhere, with Spotify, Apple, the iHeartRadio, Pandora. Mm-hmm. So if you look at us, you can find us anywhere. And also we also got the website, Getting Lumped Up. That way you can get links to the shows, the YouTube channel, everything else, the Instagram page, the Facebook page. And if you want to drop me a line, just go to Rob Rossi at gettinglumpedup.com and shoot me an email.
Okay.
What do you think about that, Mike?
Well, get in touch, everybody. We love to hear from you.
Yeah. And for all of you that are out there, remember, life is a mystery, but don't get drunk.
Get lumped up.
See you next week.
Take care, people.